Hello everyone, I'm Caro. In the comment sections of my previous videos, there's one opinion that keeps coming up again and again. Ordinary people shouldn't learn investing. The more you learn, the more you lose. It's just dollar cost average into index funds, and that's all you need. Every time I see this, a huge question mark appears over my head. Because have you ever really thought about how absurd the logic behind that statement actually is? Let me give you a few analogies and see how they sound. Imagine someone saying, ordinary people shouldn't learn how to drive. If you learn, you might get into an accident, so just take the subway and be done with it. Or, ordinary people shouldn't learn English. You'll only end up speaking broken English anyway, so just stick to your native language. Wouldn't you find that ridiculous? Of course you would. Because deep down we all understand that learning to drive gives us greater freedom in physical space. And learning English gives us greater freedom in the world of information. These skills exist to give us more choices and more control over our own lives. They are widely recognized in modern society as essential survival skills that almost everyone is encouraged to master. Some of them are even written directly into mandatory school curricula. Now here's the most important question. Investing and personal finance directly determine how much money you will have over your entire lifetime, and whether financial freedom is even possible for you at all. So why is it that when it comes to something this important, the mainstream advice suddenly becomes, don't learn it? Isn't that an obvious double standard? Skill becomes more important, yet ordinary people are discouraged from learning it? That logic simply doesn't stand up. At its core, it's arrogant because it treats ordinary people like helpless children who lack the ability to think independently. And that's exactly why, in today's video, I want to directly dismantle this so-called well-meaning but toxic piece of advice. I'm not only going to explain why ordinary people should actively learn investing, I'm also going to show you that investing is not only a skill ordinary people can learn, but that as an ordinary individual, you actually hold at least 4 powerful advantages that can beat Wall Street itself. These will be your strongest weapons for long-term wealth growth. If you've ever been confused or discouraged by the idea that ordinary people shouldn't learn investing, then make sure you watch this video to the end, because it might be the most important step you take toward upgrading your financial thinking. Let's start by breaking the first myth, that investing is a game reserved only for elites. Many people believe that those well-dressed professionals on Wall Street, graduates of top universities armed with complex financial models, are simply playing a different game from us. And it's true that in many areas, ordinary people can't compete with them, whether it's access to information, trading infrastructure, or sheer capital size. But what makes investing truly fascinating is that it's not an Olympic competition where higher, faster, and stronger always wins. You can choose to compete on dimensions where you personally have an edge. And in some of the most critical dimensions, ordinary investors actually possess advantages that Wall Street simply cannot replicate. I like to summarize these advantages as 4 aces. Ace number 1, your industry experience. Let me ask you a simple question. Who understands healthcare better? An analyst who has spent 5 years at a top investment bank covering the medical sector? Or an ordinary person who has worked for 10 years as an attending physician in a frontline hospital? That analyst may be able to read dozens of industry reports in a few days and recite a listed company's financial statements from memory. But does he actually know which brand of thoracic surgery equipment works best in real hospitals with the lowest failure rate? Can he personally feel which new treatment methods are truly bringing revolutionary changes to lung cancer patients? Can he sense the most urgent and real needs between doctors and patients? He can't, but you can. Whether you're a doctor, an engineer, a designer, a programmer, or a sales manager, the knowledge, experience, intuition, and professional network you build through years of deep involvement in your own industry are your most powerful source of alpha in the investment market. They are your core asset. Your understanding of your field is far deeper and far more vivid than that of analysts sitting in skyscrapers, staring at cold numbers on a screen. But here's the key point. This information advantage can only be turned into real wealth if you also have investment knowledge. A classic lesson can be found among employees of many publicly listed Silicon Valley companies. These employees understand their own company's prospects far better than any Wall Street analyst. They participate directly in product development, witness user growth firsthand, and work with core data every single day. Their compensation packages often include large amounts of stock and stock options, and yet what happens? Many of them sit on a gold mine and still miss the treasure because they don't understand investing. They don't know how to evaluate long-term value. They can't tolerate price volatility. So the moment their shares vest, they sell, turn around, and start dollar-cost averaging into index funds for a sense of psychological safety. Then they watch helplessly as the stocks they sold go up tenfold, or even dozens of times. In one sentence, they enter the treasure mountain and come back empty-handed.
How?
What's even more painful is that they still have to go to work every day, watching that stock move higher, thinking, this could have been my wealth. That feeling of I could have had this is far more painful than never having bought the stock at all. This clearly shows that information advantage is just raw material. Investment skill is what turns stone into gold. Ace number 2. Your ability to observe everyday life. Legendary investor Peter Lynch once said that the best investment opportunities often come from your daily life. And that line might as well have been written specifically for ordinary people. Professional investors spend their days locked in offices, surrounded by research reports, data, and conference calls, while we live in the real commercial world. We are consumers, users, and first-hand witnesses of business trends. Have you noticed that your family keeps going back to the same newly opened discount snack chain? Have you noticed that the blind boxes and collectible toys your kids are obsessed with all seem to point to the same publicly listed company? As an individual investor, have you noticed that a trading app you use keeps gaining users and expanding into new areas? These everyday details are the earliest sparks of investment opportunities, because every great company ultimately succeeds by penetrating daily life, and we stand right at the front line of that process. When a brand starts spreading organically on social media, when a restaurant suddenly requires a 2-hour wait, when an app spreads rapidly among colleagues, these signals arrive earlier and feel far more real than any analyst report. When the iPhone first came out, Wall Street was still analyzing Nokia's economic moat. While people around you had already started switching to iPhones, who understood the trend earlier. You did, and you always have the chance to feel these changes before Wall Street does. Ace number 3, your emotional independence. This is critically important. You might think institutional investors are cold, rational money-making machines, but in reality, they are often the most emotionally unstable participants in the market. The reason is the immense short-term performance pressure they face. Funds are ranked quarterly, monthly, sometimes even weekly. Fall behind, and clients redeem their money. Bosses apply pressure, and massive bonuses disappear. As a result, even when they know a company has enormous long-term value, 6 months of continuous price declines can force them to cut their position at the bottom. And even when they know a popular theme has turned into a bubble, they're afraid to reduce exposure and miss the rally. So they rush in at the top with newly raised capital and become the final buyers. When retail investors lose money, they're called dumb money. But when institutions lose money, it's politely labeled a style rotation. But ordinary investors are different. You're investing your own money, and you only answer to yourself. If you truly believe in a company, you can willingly give it 3 years, 5 years, or even longer to grow. No one will call you to apply pressure because of temporary price swings. If you believe something is a bubble, you can simply stay away and focus on making money in businesses you actually understand. This emotional independence gives us one of the rarest and most expensive luxuries in capital markets: patience. We can calmly buy the companies we've thoroughly researched when the market is in panic and everyone else is rushing to sell. We can hold firmly through long bear cycles and fully enjoy the growth of business value. We don't need to adjust our rhythm to please anyone else because we are the sole owners of our capital. That is true long-termism. Ace number 4, your capital flexibility. Many people think having small capital is a disadvantage, believing only big money can dominate markets, setting aside illegal market manipulation. In most cases, small capital is actually an advantage. This is what people mean when they say, small boats turn faster. Imagine an excellent company that's still small, operating in a niche industry with solid fundamentals and accelerating growth, but low visibility and thin trading volume, causing its stock to be deeply undervalued, say by as much as 50%. For an individual investor, this is a golden opportunity. For a fund managing billions of dollars, it's a non-starter. There are two reasons. First, the company is simply too small, with a market cap of only a few $100 million. Buying even $100 million would make the fund a major shareholder, creating operational difficulties while contributing almost nothing to overall fund performance. Second, and more fatally, buying itself moves the price. In an illiquid stock, a large fund's orders hit the market like a boulder dropped into a small pond, instantly pushing the price from undervalued to fairly valued or even overvalued. The fund ends up delivering the benefits of value discovery to existing shareholders and becoming the buyer of last resort. There's a vivid analogy. Big money is like driving a tank into a narrow alley. Even turning is difficult, while small money is like special forces, able to go anywhere. As an ordinary investor with perhaps a few thousand to a few tens of thousands of US dollars, you can quietly build positions like a hunter without moving the price at all, and patiently wait for value to be realized. The market is full of these small, high-quality corners that institutions naturally overlook. They are treasures reserved for small investors. Nearly all legendary stock investors achieve their early outsized returns through this exact process. And this also explains why many fund managers underperform the index. First, they lack emotional independence under client pressure. Second, their capital size forces them into highly liquid stocks, which are either overvalued, popular bubbles, or index heavyweights that by definition cannot beat the index itself. When you put it all together, industry, expertise, everyday observation, emotional independence, and capital flexibility, you get a powerful circle of competence unique to ordinary investors. And it leads to a simple conclusion. Investing has never been a game that ordinary people are destined to lose. Some people might say that what I'm describing sounds a bit too idealistic. So let me bring in a universally recognized investing legend and see what he has to say. And that person is Peter Lynch. The reason I strongly recommend Peter Lynch is that he may be one of the most successful investors in history, and at the same time, one of the fund managers who most openly and consistently stood up for ordinary investors. During his 13 years managing Fidelity's Magellan Fund, he achieved an almost mythical result, growing assets by roughly 28 times. And his core investment philosophy was essentially the ultimate expression of the very advantages we've been talking about for ordinary people in his classic books, One Up on Wall Street and Beating the Street. Lynch repeatedly emphasized through countless real-world examples that the first and most important edge comes from everyday observation. Many of his most famous investments were discovered directly through daily life. He once explained how he came across Hanes as an investment opportunity. One day his wife came home from the supermarket with a new product called Legs Pantyhose and told him that the quality was excellent. The packaging was innovative, and the product was selling incredibly well. Based on that simple observation from real life, Lynch did further research and realized that this was indeed a revolutionary product, and eventually Hanes stock delivered a six-fold return for him. In the same way, his personal fondness for Dunkin' Donuts led him to notice very early on that the company was expanding rapidly across the country, which later became another highly successful investment. Lynch firmly believed that, in almost any industry, as long as you observe carefully, an ordinary person has at least 10 times the chance of spotting a future winning stock compared with a Wall Street analyst. The second point he emphasized was the structural advantage of ordinary investors. To prove that regular people can absolutely outperform experts, Lynch shared a true story in Beating the Street. He was invited to mentor a group of 7th grade students on investing, and these kids built their portfolio entirely based on their own daily lives, choosing brands they knew, liked, and interacted with regularly, such as Disney, Walmart, Nike, and Gap. In the end, this portfolio created by 13-year-old students achieved an astonishing return of around 70%. Not only is Lee outperforming the S&P 500, which rose just 26% that year, but also decisively beating 99% of Wall Street fund managers over the same period. This story powerfully proves that investing does not require complex financial models or elite credentials. Common sense and real-life insight are often the most powerful tools of all. And for that reason, the idea that ordinary people shouldn't learn investing, something Peter Lynch would be the first to stand up and strongly disagree with. We've already established that ordinary people are fully capable of doing investing well. So now let's move on to a more fundamental question. Why should ordinary people learn investing in the first place? I think making money is only the most superficial benefit, because the deeper value of learning to invest is that it's a core life skill that can empower your entire life. First, on a personal level, professional expertise combined with investing skills is what I would call a true life power combo. There's a model I strongly agree with. 80 points of professional skill plus 80 points of investing skill equals a game-changing life advantage. To make this easier to understand, let's use an analogy. Think about how English plus any profession is widely recognized today as a career-boosting power combo, because it allows you to sell your labor in the global job market and seek the best possible price, rather than being limited to a single city or even a single country, effectively raising your career ceiling by a huge margin. So what does investing plus any profession mean? It means you can take the income you earn from your work, in other words your capital, and deploy it in global capital markets to own the highest quality assets. You can invest in PopMart in China, Nvidia in the United States, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Japan, gold in the commodity world, or Bitcoin in the digital world. And your wealth growth is no longer constrained by the economic cycle of where you live. The first combination breaks the buyer limitation when you sell your time for money, while the second breaks the seller limitation when you deploy capital for returns. And when you combine the two, your life gains two powerful and complementary paths. The first is a defensive path, where you become the financial anchor of your family, firmly in control of your life. Once you understand investing, you're no longer someone who relies solely on a fixed monthly paycheck while worrying endlessly about mortgages, bills, and the future. Because you know how to make money work for you and how to build a resilient portfolio that can withstand risks. This financial foundation brings enormous psychological freedom, giving you the courage to choose work you genuinely care about instead of being trapped by salary alone, and allowing you to face uncertainty and challenges with far more calm and flexibility. The second is an offensive path, where you build a unique professional moat and unlock a second growth curve in your career. As I mentioned earlier, a professional who truly understands investing is an exceptionally rare hybrid talent. Your industry expertise helps you identify value earlier and understand it more deeply, while your investing ability allows you to convert that value into tangible results, sometimes even with leverage. Your understanding of an industry can enable you to outperform fund managers in certain investment decisions, and at the same time, your investing mindset feeds back into your primary work, giving you a broader, more commercial perspective that helps you stand out, and potentially even move toward entrepreneurship or becoming a professional investor. That's why the compounding effect of investing is not just financial compounding, but a compounding of your perspective, your thinking, and your life possibilities. And it's a skill truly worth a lifetime of learning and practice. Second, at the family level, investing matters because it enables the intergenerational transfer of both wisdom and wealth. I want you to seriously consider this question. Why do we work so hard in the first place? Many people would say it's to give their children better conditions, but what does better conditions really mean? Is it just leaving them some money or a house? That matters, but it's far from enough. Because we've all seen countless stories where wealth fails to last beyond 3 generations, since without the ability to manage wealth, even the greatest fortune can be quickly squandered. After becoming a father myself, I often reflected on what my parents truly passed on to me, and what I want to pass on to my own children. Beyond material things, what matters more is family wisdom, how to conduct yourself, how to learn, how to manage emotions, how to deal with setbacks, how to manage time, how to choose a partner, and how to choose a career. And among all these, one capability stands out as especially important because it creates genuine intergenerational compounding, and that is the ability to invest and the wisdom to master wealth. When you spend a lifetime learning and practicing investing and eventually form your own investment framework and philosophy of wealth, you gain an asset far more valuable than money itself. You can pass this wisdom on to your children, teaching them the difference between value and price, between risk and opportunity, how to view money, and how patience and common sense allow wealth to grow steadily over time. What you pass on is not just the fish, but the ability to fish. This kind of wisdom is the foundation that allows a family to endure major changes across generations and achieve true long-term compounding. It's creating a healthy wealth cycle and a more stable family foundation. From this perspective, starting to learn investing today is not just for yourself, but for the future of your entire family, planting a seed of hope that represents the true ultimate meaning of investing. So friends, today we've talked about the 4 aces ordinary people hold, examined Peter Lynch's real-world validation, and explored the profound impact investing can have on individuals and families. Which brings us back to the original question: should ordinary people skip learning, investing, and just dollar-cost average into the S&P 500? Now I can give you my answer. Dollar-cost averaging into the S&P 500 can be one tool for young salaried workers to build capital while focusing on their careers, but it should never, and must never, become the endpoint where ordinary people limit themselves, believing you can't learn it or that learning it is useless, and therefore giving up entirely is ultimately a form of cognitive laziness and a profound betrayal of your own potential. This video is not meant to encourage you to sell your index funds tomorrow and rush into buying individual stocks. On the contrary, I hope you become more cautious. What I truly want is to ignite a spark inside you. Starting today, I hope you use investing as a lens to apply your strengths as an ordinary person when you work. Think about your industry's business model, competitive landscape, whether it has strong moats and dominant leaders, how high its ceiling is, what the long-term trend looks like, and whether disruptive innovation is emerging. When you shop, travel, or seek entertainment, observe which brands are rising, which products people around you keep buying again and again, how consumption trends are shifting in the current macro environment, how distribution channels are evolving, and which brands are benefiting from new channels. When markets fluctuate and anxiety creeps in, remind yourself that your true edge is patience and independent thinking, not impulsiveness or herd behavior, because the real barrier to investing has never been IQ, education, or starting capital, but the ability to apply common sense, the discipline to stay patient, and most importantly, deep confidence in the unique advantages you already possess as an ordinary person. Your potential is far greater than you think. I hope today's video gives you something to reflect on, and if you agree with what I've shared, feel free to pass it along so more people who are still confused can see it. I also invite you to share in the comments your own stories of discovering investment opportunities through everyday life and work, to give confidence to younger viewers just beginning their investing journey. Thank you for watching. I'm Caro, and I'll see you next time.